Why a birthday is a celebration for the birth of a corpse. The birthday is a day for celebrating the birth of a dead baby. Every year millions and possibly billions of people celebrate their birthdays with cakes, gifts and delicious food. What most people do not understand is that a birthday is actually a ritual for celebrating the birth of a corpse, which is a dead body. Some of the evidence of this can be found in the legal definitions of the word birth. More evidence can also be found by using the art of homophone to find other words related to the word birth. To really understand why a birthday is a ritual for celebrating the birth of a corpse, you need to study the occult, hidden meanings of the birth certificate. After you do this, you should come to the conclusion that a birthday is a ritual for celebrating the birth of a corpse, a dead baby or a stillborn child. Why a birth certificate is a death certificate. One of the best videos I have found that does a great job of explaining the occult meanings of the birth certificate is titled The Law and You by Bill Turner. In the video, Bill says that the Births, Deaths, Marriages, and Relationships Registration Act 1995 defines the word birth using these exact words, includes a stillbirth. Here is a screenshot of the interpretation section of that Registration Act. Two other words you should pay attention to in the screenshot above are body and child. Did you notice their definition is related to a dead thing? Another word you need to pay attention to is include. When the word include is used in an interpretation or definition of a legal matter, it often excludes everything else that is not in that interpretation or definition. In one of the previous paragraphs, I said that the Births, Deaths, Marriages, and Relationships Registration Act 1995 defines the word birth using these exact words, includes a stillbirth. Because the word include often excludes everything else, the word birth actually means that it only includes a stillbirth and nothing else. For a better explanation of what I just said, watch the video. Scroll to the time frame of about 9:30. This is where the host, Bill Turner, explains why the word include is used by the legal system to exclude everything else.
Interest therein. Okay, so what we are is an estate. Now they have created an estate and they call it land. And we will find out when an act says it includes something, everything else is excluded. So if you go to Bovier's and look at the maxim, inclusio unius est exclusio ulterius, the inclusion of one is the exclusion of another. Now, quite often through this presentation we're going to be looking at words that are defined in different acts, and you need to know that if it includes something, then it excludes everything else. So if it does not include what they are saying, then it is excluded. The Births, Deaths and Marriages Registration Act 1995 says that birth includes a stillbirth. Now we've already said if it doesn't include, it must exclude. So does birth include a live birth? Obviously not. Child includes a stillborn. Does it include a live born? Obviously not. So straight away you're starting to get a picture of what's happening here, because your birth certificate is actually your death certificate. So let's have a little recap here. When you're born, the hospital issues a live born certificate with weight to the government. Now the weight is very important and still measured in ounces. The husband registers the child under the Births, Deaths and Marriages Act. The government registers a foreign situs trust in real name, the same as your birth certificate. Now this is actually a bond. Your birth certificate is a bond, and that bond gets sold off onto the markets. The World Bank, as settler, settles your trust with your birth weight in gold. So when they say that you're worth your weight in gold, they're not lying.
The phrase stillbirth is defined as birth of a dead fetus or baby, also known as a stillborn child, which is a child incapable of living or dead. Based on all the previous definitions, the word birth is a word used to express the bearing of only a dead fetus or baby. Another video that does a great job of revealing what the birth certificate is really about is titled The Truth About Your Birth Certificate. The video uses animated cartoon to help explain why the birth certificate is a death certificate created for the purpose of tricking you to play the role of a fictional dead character.
Ah, the government. It loves you and wants to keep you safe and well. It even wants to make paying taxes, fines, and court costs easier for you. How? Well, you'll need to meet your straw man. He was born the same day you were. He looks like you, has the same name, and lives in your house, but you never knew he existed. You will have even paid his parking tickets or taxes. The worst part? He's been dead from day one. From every birth certificate, a legal personality, or legal fiction, is created with the same name to confuse little old you into thinking it's you. So, there is a human you and a paper you, or as it's commonly known, a straw man. So when it seems like government officials, court clerks, or the police are speaking English, they aren't. They're speaking legalese, designed to make you agree to verbal and written contracts without even knowing about it, all spun from Black's Law Dictionary. For example, when the police say, "Do you understand?" you'll say, "Yes." What they are really saying is, "Do you stand under our authority?" Oops-a-daisy, you just created a verbal contract with them. Oh, you clever government. Did you know that whenever you register something, you are handing over title to the person you register it with? That's right. Whenever you register something with the government, they assume it belongs to them. Registered your car? Super! Now you are the registered keeper of your vehicle, and the government can crush it when you don't pay your, straw man's taxes. Expecting a new bundle of joy? Well then you need to register your little darling with a birth certificate. Then they can start the process all over again and create a new straw man for your little one. Isn't that great? So when Junior grows up, he'll be able to generate revenue just like you have. When you notify on your baby by signing the birth certificate, your child becomes a ward of state, and if the government doesn't like what you're doing, they'll assume it's okay to take the child away, or make new rules for things they don't like. Not enough school? Smacking your child? Shouting too loudly? Then it's off to social services for the little one. When you get a bill, it's sent to you, but belongs to your straw man, not you. That's why bills, fines, and summons start with Mr., Mrs., or Ms. Sometimes you'll see your surname in capitals, just like on a gravestone. That's because your straw man is dead, and just a silly piece of paper, created before you could comprehend or even consent to it. When you go to court, you represent your straw man, so you, the human, take on any costs, fees, taxes, and fines involved for the straw man. The human you doesn't even need to pay them. But you made a contract with the court by appearing on behalf of your legal personality or straw man, just like the government knew you would. Confused? Well, don't worry. The government doesn't want you to know anyway. If you knew, you'd stop paying things like council tax and parking tickets. Because when you go to court, you are representing your straw man. You are you, alive and made of flesh and blood. Your straw man, or legal personality, is a piece of paper created from your birth certificate. And you think it's you. What a silly Billy.
This is a certified true copy of my live statement of birth. You can get this by applying for it at the Registrar General. They'll give it to you. And it's very interesting because this is where it all began. This is the foundation document. All identification is generated from this document. And so if the foundation document is no good, anything that's made from it is no good. That means driver's licenses, health cards, everything. Now what they did here, this is exactly what he meant when he said, soon every American will be required to register their biological property. Now, your parents didn't realize what they were doing when they filled this out, and these didn't exist before 1933. Birth records were recorded in scripture, and these only came into being in 1933 when they hatched this plan. They created a corporate fiction with a name just like yours. In doing this, they registered and monetized the spirit and soul of a living being. This denotes ownership. And when your parents were tricked into filling this out, they allowed your spirit and your soul to be monetized. And futures were sold on you.
Spirit and soul. I don't...
Now, this is my birth certificate. This is actually a share. See this red number? This A, I'm born in Canada, this is a Class A share. Now, this is called a CUSP number. And all securities require a CUSP number. And that's what this is. And you are held as collateral to secure the debt, which our government owes to international bankers. So you and me and all these people here are actually collateral. And we don't even own our lives. We are chattel. And we believe we're free. I made an application to the Registrar General, and I got my original social insurance application. Now, before they sent it to me, they put a little piece of paper over this before they photocopied it, because my friend has his, and they didn't block this out, and when you hold it up, you see Bank of Canada. It is said that the best slaves are the ones who don't know that they're enslaved, and we all have invisible chains on us, and we don't know it.
What truth? That you are a slave here. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
We're talking about big bucks. We're not talking about hundreds of millions or even hundreds of billions now. We're talking about trillions of dollars. The obligation is immeasurable. Nobody can measure it.
This door's wide open now. It's gonna happen, whether you like it or not.
Do you notice that they have the same amount of ink on them? Do you notice that they're made out of the same virtually worthless stuff? It's paper. Did you get it? It's paper. When we create money, we have created an instrument of value that has no value of its own. And it's just as expensive or inexpensive to print the 20 as it is to print the 1. In January of 1913, in December of 1913, he signed the Federal Reserve Act, bringing the Federal Reserve System into place in America, and did what Thomas Jefferson said must never happen. He took the control of the money away from the people by taking it away from the Congress and gave it to a group of private individuals who have to pay taxes on the money they loan the government.
The truth about your birth certificate. Let us turn our attention back to the phrase birth certificate and investigate its definitions. We already know the hidden meaning of the word birth, so let us examine the word certificate. Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition defines the word certificate using these exact words: a written assurance, or official representation, that some act has or has not been done, or some event occurred, or some legal formality has been complied with. In the previous definition, the word you need to pay extra attention to is assurance. The word assurance is defined by Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition using these exact words: the act or action of assuring, e.g. a pledge, guarantee, or surety. One of the words you need to pay attention to in the previous definition is the word surety. According to the same law dictionary, the word surety means a person who is primarily liable for payment of debt or performance of obligation of another. Dictionary.com defines the word surety as security against loss or damage or for the fulfillment of an obligation, the payment of a debt, etc., a pledge, guarantee, or bond. Based on the previous definitions, a certificate is an assurance of a debt or bond. When you put the words birth and certificate together, they become the phrase birth certificate, meaning a debt or bond of a dead baby. In other words, a birth certificate is a death certificate. The day your parents signed the birth certificate, death certificate with your name on it, they unknowingly agreed to turn you into a stillborn child, dead child. A dead child does not have natural rights. This is why the government can take away your property and throw you in jail for violating their so-called laws. A very important thing you need to know about your birth certificate is that it is a document of evidence. It is somewhat similar to a receipt of an unpaid item. Because of this, you do not legally own your birth certificate. To be more specific, your birth certificate is a bond that is sold in commerce. The bankster who bought the bond, birth certificate, is the owner. The truth is that you do not legally own anything. This can be proven by reading Senate Document 43. In one of the paragraphs of this document, it says, the ultimate ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e. law, amounting to mere user, and use must be in accordance with law, and subordinate to the necessities of the state. How you were tricked to agree to live in the land of the dead. So, how is all this information relates to you? It relates to you because you have been tricked to play a role of a dead and fictional character. By agreeing to play the role of a dead and fictional character, you fall under the jurisdiction of the legal system, which is a system that deals with the dead.
The scenario is extremely sophisticated, resulting in the operation of a vast and pervasive administration of legalized peonage, slavery, permanent indentured servitude, and collectivism, communism, wherein the people have forfeited all standing in law and are dead to rights. The powers that be borrow against your life, rights, and labor to finance their administration of the system they use to exploit, plunder, and dominate you, all under the presumption that they are acting as your agents to fulfill your own requests. In this scheme, one is punished when one fails to pay or obey. The sequence of steps involved in creating the existing system, in accordance with the best research to date resulting from the efforts of many devoted people, is as follows in the United States. 1. A living, flesh and blood baby is born from its mother's womb. 2. The legal, commercial system, existing and functioning entirely in the abstract realm of words, contracts, legal persons, corporate entities, laws, symbols, ideas, commerce, private international law, etc., which constitutes the matrix, cannot see, recognize, or deal directly with the real world, including real people. The system itself is imaginary, while the real world is genuine and substantive. Consequently, the system deals only with documents and matters in the abstract realm that form, by presumption, ratified implied contract attached to the real world by operation of law and the tacit consent of the people. 3. Just after birth, the involved doctors and hospitals have the mother sign a birth certificate, i.e., a certificate of live birth, without telling the mother, and undoubtedly without themselves knowing the truth, that by so doing she and the doctor are criminally informing on her newborn baby as an enemy of the state in accordance with the war powers and turning the baby over to the bankers as chattel property and slave, pledging the baby's life energy and labor in perpetuity as the collateral for borrowing into existence all currency. Debt paper that passes as money today. 4. The original birth certificate, a certificate of live birth, constitutes, as it were, a certificate of title to the real being, and is in essence the equivalent of a manufacturer's statement or certificate of origin, i.e., MSO or MCO, which is created upon manufacturing an automobile and constitutes title to the vehicle. 5. Just as in the case of a car, anything being registered in the legal system is established on the record as property of the king. The key here is registered, a word deriving from regis, meaning king, whereby everything registered is recorded as the king's property. 6. The sequence of steps concerning the birth certificate appears to be as follows. A. After registration of the certificate of live birth in the office of the county recorder makes a certified, true copy or microfilm, retains it, and sends the original to the Department of Commerce in the state. B. As in the case of the county recorder, the State Department of Commerce makes a certified, true copy or microfilm, retains it, and sends the original to the Department of Commerce of the federal government in Washington, D.C. C. The Department of Commerce in Washington then makes a certified, true copy and, in addition, creates a new document, constituting a certificate of equity interest, which is labeled birth certificate. This birth certificate, however, has the child's name in all capital letters, unlike the original birth certificate filed in the county recorder on which the name was in upper and lower case letters, D. The Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C. then forwards the originals of both documents to the record repository in such locations as The Hague, for holding on behalf of the international banks, e.g., the World Bank, the Bank of International Settlement, IMF, AL. There the documents remain on deposit as the collateral asset for hypothecating into existence the credit that finances the underwriting of the world's bankrupt governments. 7. By this means, the people become the utility for the transmission of energy from reality into the fictitious, colorable realm of international commerce. The private, international law that governs the legal, commercial system today is the Uniform Commercial Code, which is established as the law of the land in the United States in Public Laws 88 to 243 and 88 to 244. The UCC is private, not public, law, and is copyrighted by Unidroit, an Italian corporation out of the Vatican. Now the people, via their all-caps names, are classified as human resources and goods under the Uniform Commercial Code, see Section 2 to 105 (1) and 9 to 105 (1), in which animals, i.e. humans and their unborn offspring, become goods saleable in commerce. The Department of Treasury issues bonds on the birth certificates, which are sold through securities exchanges and purchased by extending credit on the bank's books by the Federal Reserve Bank, which uses the bonds as reserves for creating credit in the fractional reserve system. The people's labor becomes the collateral for issuing Federal Reserve notes or some other form of debt obligation, see 18 U.S.C. Section 411. The bonds are held in trust for the purchaser, now the secured party and holder in due course, at the Resolution Trust Company at 55 Water Street, in New York City, about 2 blocks down the street from the Federal Reserve. It is a high-rise office building with a sign that reads, "The Tower of Power." After the New Deal, the all-caps name, hereinafter, strawman, is what the system deals with, since it cannot interface directly with real beings. The real being, however, is presumed to have ratified the deal, agreed to the pledge, by the 3-3 means for signifying ratification of implied contracts. Thereafter, the system functions on the basis of possessing complete authority to do anything it wishes with the strawman, which is the system's own creation and property and does not belong to the living being to whom the strawman purportedly pertains. This scheme of legal, commercial peonage and slavery is outside the Constitution, which does not apply in any matters concerning the resulting process. The system functions in the realm of private contract, private international law, in international commerce, i.e., the private international law of the private, colorable law merchant, not within the direct purview of the Constitution, which merely sanctifies the operational right to contract. Thereafter, every time the real being signs his name on any legal, commercial document, he is creating more debt currency into existence, signing as the surety, or accommodation party, for the Uniform Commercial Code Section 3 to 415. He is also placing title to whatever property is involved in the hands of the bond holder. In this scenario, the name, i.e., strawman, is credit and is a constructive trust created by operation of law, i.e., fiat, holding all the real assets, i.e., sweat equity, created by the labor of the real being. The right to the use has been separated from the title. The strawman holds the title and belongs to the bond holder, not the real being. The flesh and blood man or woman has only naked possession with a limited right to use the thing, such as one's body, possessions, or land. Such illusion of ownership and right is essential to maintain the sting on an ongoing basis, keep the people from completely rebelling if the status as slaves was self-evident, and fostering more enthusiasm to work and produce by thinking that they are doing so for their own benefit rather than for the enrichment and power of their owners, masters, rulers.
Have you seen the TV series The Walking Dead? In this TV series, the zombies represent the sheeple who do not even realize that they are legally dead. In other words, from the perspective of the elite, you are the walking dead, get it? The zombies represent the sheeple who do not even realize that they are legally dead. To trick you to agree to play the role of a zombie, dead and fictional character, the elite created the birth certificate with the legal name. The legal name is a legal fiction and is often written in all capital letters. The all-caps name is one of the ways that they secretly tell you that you are playing a role of a dead character. Hence, the name in all caps on gravestones. You can find the all-caps name on government documents, such as a state-issued ID. The legal name is sometimes referred to as the strawman. It is the most effective tool used by the legal system to enslave your body, mind and soul. This is what the lawyers, bankers, and politicians have used to enslave you. It is a crime known as personage. By arbitrarily creating an estate trust named after you and claiming to own this thing they created, they have falsely claimed to own you and your assets and to literally buy and sell you on stock exchanges, ship you out of ports, and tax you for doing things you've never done. After all, there is no law against enslaving an estate trust, is there? Or arresting a slave? Or charging a tax on importing revenue to Puerto Rico?
Critical knowledge: the legal ownership of all souls by the Vatican since 1306. www.thievenchronicle.com. History of trusts: the first trust of the world, Unum Sanctum, is one of the most frightening documents of history and the one most quoted as the primary document of the popes claiming their global power. It is an express trust deed. The last line reads, "Furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman Pontiff." It is not only the first trust deed in history but also the largest trust ever conceived, as it claims the whole planet and everything on it conveyed in trust. Triple Crown of Baal, aka the Papal Tiara and Triregnum. In 1302 Pope Boniface issued his infamous papal bull Unum Sanctum, the first express trust. He claimed control over the whole planet, which made him king of the world. In celebration, he commissioned a gold-plated headdress in the shape of a pinecone, with an elaborate crown at its base. The pinecone is an ancient symbol of fertility and one traditionally associated with Baal as well as the cult of Cybele. It also represents the pineal gland in the center of our brains, crystalline in nature, which allows us access to source, hence, the 13-foot-tall pinecone in Vatican Square. Think about why the pontiffs would idolize a pinecone. The first crown of Crown Land. Pope Boniface VIII. Pope Boniface VIII was the first leader in history to create the concept of a trust, but the first testamentary trust, through a deed and will creating a deceased estate, was created by Pope Nicholas V in 1455, through the papal bull Romanus Pontifex. This is only one of three papal bulls to include the line with the incipit for a perpetual remembrance. This bull had the effect of conveying the right of use of the land as real property, from the express trust Unum Sanctum, to the control of the pontiff and his successors in perpetuity. Hence, all land is claimed as Crown Land. This first crown is represented by the first Cestui Que Vie trust, created when a child is born. It deprives us of all beneficial entitlements and rights on the land. The second crown of the Commonwealth. The second crown was created in 1481 with the papal bull Aeterni Regis, meaning eternal crown, by Sixtus IV, being only the second of three papal bulls as deeds of testamentary trusts. This papal bull created the Crown of Aragon, later known as the Crown of Spain, and is the highest sovereign and highest steward of all Roman slaves subject to the rule of the Roman pontiff. Spain lost the crown in 1604 when it was granted to King James I of England by Pope Paul V after the successful passage of the Union of Crowns, or Commonwealth, in 1605 after the false flag operation of the Gunpowder Plot. The crown was finally lost by England in 1975, when it was returned to Spain and King Carlos I, where it remains to this day. This second crown is represented by the second Cestui Que Vie trust, created when a child is born and, by the sale of the birth certificate as a bond to the private central bank of the nation, depriving us of ownership of our flesh and condemning us to perpetual servitude, as a Roman person, or slave. The third crown of the ecclesiastical see. The third crown was created in 1537 by Paul III, through the papal bull Convocation, also meant to open the Council of Trent. It is the third and final testamentary deed and will of a testamentary trust, set up for the claiming of all lost souls, lost to the sea. The Venetians assisted in the creation of the first Cestui Que Vie Act of 1540, to use this papal bull as the basis of ecclesiastical authority of Henry VIII. This crown was secretly granted to England in the collection and reaping of lost souls. The crown was lost in 1816, due to the deliberate bankruptcy of England, and granted to the Temple Bar, which became known as the Crown Bar, or simply the Crown. The bar associations have since been responsible for administering the reaping of the souls of the lost and damned, including the registration and collection of baptismal certificates representing the souls collected by the Vatican and stored in its vaults. This third crown is represented by the third Cestui Que Vie trust, created when a child is baptized. It is the parent's grant of the baptismal certificate title to the soul to the church or registrar. Thus, without legal title over one's own soul, we will be denied legal standing and will be treated as things cargo without souls upon which the bar is now legally able to enforce maritime law. The Cestui Que Vie trust. A Cestui Que Vie trust is a fictional concept. It is a temporary testamentary trust, first created during the reign of Henry VIII of England through the Cestuique Act of 1540 and updated by Charles II through the CQV Act of 1666, wherein an estate may be effected for the benefit of a person presumed lost or abandoned at sea and therefore assumed dead after 7 years. Additional presumptions, by which such a trust may be formed, were added in later statutes to include bankrupts, minors, incompetents, mortgages, and private companies. The original purpose of a CQV trust was to form a temporary estate for the benefit of another because some event, state of affairs, or condition prevented them from claiming their status as living, competent, and present before a competent authority. Therefore, any claims, history, statutes, or arguments that deviate in terms of the origin and function of a CQV trust, as pronounced by these canons, is false and automatically null and void. A beneficiary under a state may be either a beneficiary or a CQV trust. When a beneficiary loses direct benefit of any property of the higher estate placed in a CQV trust on his behalf, he do not own the CQV trust, he is only the beneficiary of what the trustees of the CQV trust choose to provide. As all CQV trusts are created on presumption, based upon original purpose and function, such a trust cannot be created if these presumptions can be proven not to exist. Since 1933, when a child is born in a state under inferior Roman law, 3 Cestuique vi, trusts are created upon certain presumptions specifically designed to deny, forever, the child any rights of real property, any rights to be free, and any rights to be known as man or woman, rather than a creature or animal, by claiming and possessing their soul or spirit. The executors or administrators of the higher estate willingly and knowingly convey the beneficial entitlements of the child, as beneficiary, into the first Cestuique vi trust in the form of a registry number by registering the name, thereby also creating the corporate person and denying the child any rights to real property, and claim the baby as chattel to the estate. The slave baby contract is then created by honoring the ancient tradition of either having the incompression of the baby's feet onto the live birth record, or a drop of its blood, as well as tricking the parents to signing the baby away through the deceitful legal meanings on the live birth record, which is a promissory note, converted into a slave bond, sold to the private reserve bank of the estate, and then conveyed into a second and separate CQV trust, per child, owned by the bank. When the promissory note reaches maturity and the bank is unable to seize the slave child, a maritime lien is lawfully issued to salvage the lost property and is monetized as currency issued in series against a CQV trust. Claim the child's soul via the baptismal certificate. Since 1540 and the creation of the first CQV Act, deriving its power from the papal bull of Roman cult leader Pope Paul III, 1540, when a child is baptized and a baptismal certificate is issued, the parents have gifted, granted, and conveyed the soul of the baby to a third CQV trust owned by Roman cult, which has held this valuable property in its vaults ever since. Since 1815, this third crown of the Roman cult and third CQV trust representing ecclesiastical property has been managed by the bar as the reconstituted Gala, responsible, as Grim Reapers, for reaping the souls. Each Cestuique vi trust, created since 1933, represents one of the three crowns representing the three claims of property of the Roman cult: real property, on earth; personal property, body; and ecclesiastical property, soul. Each corresponds exactly to the three forms of law available to the Gala of the bar courts: corporate commercial law, judge is the landlord; maritime and canon law, judge is the banker; and Talmudic law, judge is the priest.
Source: Why a birthday is a ceremony for celebrating the birth of a corpse. By now you should understand why a birthday is a ceremony for celebrating the birth of a corpse or a dead baby, which is why they teach you to light candles and stick them on a cake during your birthday. When it comes to corpses, people light candles to dispel the darkness, so the souls of corpses can find their way home. Every time you light candles during your birthday and stick them on a cake, your actions tell the dark forces that you consent to be a participant of the birthday ceremony, which is a ritual for celebrating the birth of a corpse, a dead baby or a stillborn child. Furthermore, you consent to be a dead person or a legal fiction, which is a corporation. A corporation is a corp-o-ration or corpse-o-ration. In the plural form, the word corporation can be written as cor. The word cor sounds similar to the word corpse, which is defined as a dead body, usually of a human being. The dark forces and their legal system see you as a corpse to be used as ration to feed their matrix. It is all about using symbols and the power of words and numbers to trick you to agree to live in the land of the dead or the land of legal fiction, corporation, corpse. Personally, I do not see anything wrong with eating a cake. However, when you do the whole birthday ceremony, you agree to participate in a ritual for celebrating the birth of a corpse, a dead baby or a stillborn child. You also agree to be a dead character, legal fiction. This allows the dark forces and their legal system, which is a system that deals with the dead, to have jurisdiction over you.